And it is a pleasure to be with you, and I really appreciate you inviting me to come and join you all today. What we see across America is a growing movement of people who want to be thoughtful about how they eat, and as Michael Pollan has put it, they want to vote with their forks, and they're voting more and more in favor of buying and consuming organic foods for all the reasons that you're familiar with, the quality of the food in the body, but also certainly the impact on the earth of how the food is produced. And so I've been excited to help champion this effort. I do want to recognize Chris Schreiner. Chris from Oregon Tilth, are you here? So good to have you and your leadership in Oregon. Thank you. And I think maybe we should hold this conference in Oregon next year. The only problem is most of you would want to stay in the state, and then we would deplete the ranks from across the country. And we need all of you lobbying your legislators in the House and the Senate to convey your frontline stories to them. I understand you're going to be on the Hill tomorrow. And there's nothing like the direct experience being brought to an elected's attention to provide a persuasive understanding. In Oregon, we do have quite an explosion in organic farming. I was talking to Susan Collins of Maine yesterday, and she was talking about the expansion in Maine. And I sometimes feel like the country's just a map folded in the middle at some point in our geological past, because when you visit Maine, you have the same salmon issues, the same timber issues, the same initiatives on the ballot, the same initiative system, and the same largest city of Portland. So I don't know how all that happened, but it is striking that we can add to that list the organic movement. I thought I would share with you a couple of the battles that we've gone through, and the first one really was when I heard about from the Oregon community about the insurance as it was set up by USDA crop insurance on the organic side, and how organic farmers were being charged a surcharge up front of 5%. The theory was that they were going to get higher prices on the back end, but they would only get those prices when USDA got around to evaluating the value of the crops. So this was just fundamentally unfair. And the USDA is, it's Department of Agriculture. We're got to drag them into the modern world here. They're sometimes slow on the organic front, and they were very, very slow to respond to this responsibility. So I was going on the floor from member to member to member. This is the floor of the chamber, the Senate, on the Republican side, trying to find a Republican champion. And they were kind of far and few between. And then Bob Corker, I ran into Bob Corker, and he said, you know what? Just last weekend I held a fundraiser for the organic community. I think he said at his home, back home. And it just shows, you just keep talking to folks and slowly build a coalition. And then he co-sponsored the bill that I had. It was a little too late to advocate with his colleagues because the vote was seconds later. But still, it's part of building a movement, building a set of champions who are working together. And we won that. We won that vote on the floor. And today we're in a very much better place. The surcharge is gone, and a lot of the prices have been set. We have to keep working and pushing the Department of Agriculture, but it's a lot of progress. Then I wanted to turn to March of 2013. In March of 2013, there was a continuing resolution, and that's to basically keep the government funded when we haven't successfully passed the appropriation bills or the spending bills. And I was, just after that vote, I was out in Oregon, and I was doing town halls. I go to every county every year and hold a town hall. And someone stood up and said, why did you vote for that Monsanto Protection Act? That kind of froze me in my tracks. And it turned out to be a provision, not with any such title on it, but a provision that Senator Blunt had inserted into the continuing resolution that essentially said, even if there is a court that rules that a product is a seed product, often a GMO product, is either unhealthy for humans or damaging to other agriculture, you can ignore that ruling and plant and harvest the crop anyway. And even just the strategy of saying, well, the courts don't make any difference, didn't change the law up front, didn't change the process up front, it just changed it after the fact. So you could still challenge the process, but if you won, then your victory was taken away. And so I decided that we needed to kill that Monsanto Protection Act. The key was that it was only good for the fiscal year, and the fiscal year ends September 30th. And so I worked with several other key partners, including Barbara Mikulski, the chair of the Appropriations Committee, Debbie Stabenow, the chair of Agriculture, and I'm happy to say that we made such a big fuss with your all's help that when the next appropriations bill started on October 1st, we had driven a stake through the heart of the Monsanto Protection Act. Fast forwarding to May 2014, and we had quite an interesting set of circumstances in Oregon. Jackson County had planned an initiative, and this was related to the drift of pollen from non-organic to organic farmers. And we'd had so many new organic farmers in Jackson County, they said, really, we should just not allow the GMO crops to be grown in our county. And so they put a ballot initiative up, and I'm not sure that's been done anywhere else in the country. Now, that happens to be a fairly progressive county in southern Oregon. It's the center of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. It's Ashland. It's on I-5. And people say, well, that's Jackson County. But then Josephine County, right next door, an incredibly conservative county, who also has a blossoming set of organic farmers, said, we want to do the same thing. And they put it on their ballot. Well, meanwhile, the Oregon legislature, in something that needs to be undone, had banned counties from having this power, with the exception of Jackson County, which had already filed their paperwork. Well, I always thought, well, this will be very interesting. This will pass in Jackson County, the progressive liberal county. It'll go down in flames in the conservative county, and that'll just, of course, that's the way it will work out. Well, it did pass overwhelmingly in Jackson County, as I anticipated. It was 65-35. But Josephine, this conservative county next door, they went ahead with their vote, even though the state told them that they weren't allowed to, and they passed it 58-42. And so there we go, the movement of the organic community gaining support in both progressive and conservative areas across the country. So, good example. And if you have any local ballot initiatives and want advice on how to get them passed, you've got both a liberal county and a conservative county that can give you advice on that. And then I want to turn to the Ag Approps bill. And it was this cycle, this two-year cycle in 2015, that I became the ranking member of the Senate Ag Appropriations. And this is a position that allows me to continue this conversation about organics and supporting organics. It's been a very bipartisan process. I have a very good relationship with Jerry Moran, the chair, who deserves to be complimented for his assistance. And some of the things that came out of that was the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education program was increased by about 10%. Boosting funding $2.3 million over the last year to a total of $27 million, a program I've heard from all of you about. So that's a victory. Then we also had a portion of this that directs the USDA to implement cost sharing to the full extent of its authority on the Organic Certification Cost Share Program. So that too is a victory. And then we had victories on the Conservation Stewardship Program and the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, or EQIP as you might know it by. and we wanted $20 million additional dollars for the EQUIP program. And then, as was mentioned by David, there was a proposal to legislate an organic standard for chickens, specifically whether being on a porch for outside exposure was sufficient or needed to have experience in a yard. And what this would have done, if this had gone forward, it basically would have set the porch standard in law. And I went around to my fellow committee members and said, this is a terrible idea for us to start legislating under political pressure organic standards rather than having a board of knowledgeable, experienced people deciding what it is, because it kind of really would dramatically undercut the legitimacy, if you will, the integrity of the organic program to just have it being laid down by law. And you can imagine how the standards would be crushed under various pressures. So that argument resonated, and the amendment wasn't submitted. So while you never saw a vote on it, not having a vote, not having it introduced was a big victory. And hopefully we'll be able to have the same victory on the floor when the bill gets there shortly. And the last issue I wanted to touch on was GMO labeling. There is a bill in Vermont that's going to go in effect July 1st, though it has a 6-month grace period, and it sets out a standard for organic labeling. And a lot of forces in the ag community, like, we do not want to have to put a GMO label on a package. And their argument was, with multiple states do this, you end up with essentially great hurdles to commerce. You have one state saying do this, another state doing that, but the warehouse serves both states. It becomes very confusing, very difficult. Okay, well, that's a legitimate argument. And so my position was, if you're going to take away the power of states to have a national standard, that national standard has to be authentic. That is on-package, consumer-friendly labeling on GMO ingredients across the nation. However, that's not where Senator Roberts wanted to go. He was suggesting we have something that's non-mandatory and that we put a barcode or a quick response computer code on a package with no explanation of why it's there, and that would count as labeling. Then we put an 800 number on a package with no explanation of why it's there, and that would count as labeling. That a company could simply put out social media about their ingredients somewhere, somehow, and that would count as labeling. And all of this would justify crushing the ability of states to have a true labeling program. So I went to the floor day after day and said, this is a sham, the 800 numbers, this is a scam, the computer codes, and if you care anything about states' rights, and you really feel there needs to be a national standard, it has to be one that can meet the 1-second test. What is the 1-second test? You grab a product, you look at the back of it, and you see a symbol or phrase that tells you if there are GMO ingredients. That's what I'm fighting for, and that's the battle we want to win. So, round one, we won on the floor. We defeated the Roberts proposal, but undoubtedly, he'll be back. And so the battle is not the war. And I think if you really stress the right of consumers to know what's in their food, and that 9 out of 10 Americans feel that they should have the right to have this information in an easy format on the label. Now, you know, there's so many disagreements between Democrats and Republicans and Southerners and Northerners and so on and so forth. Well, here's something everyone agrees on across the nation, across the political boundaries. It's 9 out of 10, or almost 9 out of 10 Republicans, almost 9 out of 10 Democrats, 9 out of 10 independents, geographically 9 out of 10 from any region. Look, the entire country agrees, so let's just agree to put a simple, consumer-friendly GMO label on the package. It would be ironic if the one thing in the nation we can all agree on actually gets reversed by a Senator House completely out of touch with the feelings of Americans. So I'll keep working with you to fight this battle. I'm very concerned about the next few weeks. This is why it's so helpful that you're here. Please take your message loud and clear. Citizens have the right to know a consumer-friendly symbol or phrase on the package. Campbell's Soup has already said, because we believe that our product is based on integrity with our customers, we're putting it on the package. M&M Candies company is putting on their package. I went, after I heard this, I went and bought a bunch of M&Ms. None of them had on the package. And then, this last week, my assistant Martina bought a package. Martina, your hand. She bought a package, and it was on it. So it's, you know, working its way through the warehouse, if you will. So it's on there now. Do you have it with you? Yeah. She's looking. Then I was out in Eastern Oregon over the weekend doing town halls, and I went to a very small community, very small store in the middle of nowhere. Got those M&Ms? There it was. All right. So we're making great progress. Let's hang in there. Let's win these fights. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name's Kelly Shea with So Delicious in Eugene. So my question is, so we're an organic community here, so we label our products as organic. And as we've sort of watched the GM labeling debate, I think our concern is that it really all comes down to the definition of a GMO, right? So I think if you look at the Vermont labeling law and some of the other proposed laws, the definition doesn't cover the wide variety of definitions that are in the National Organic Program, gene deletion, gene insertion, and all that. So I guess I don't have a question as much as an ask for you, sir, that sort of as you look at this, the devil is always in the details, or as my grandmother used to say, God is in the details. So if you would just consider that, we'd appreciate it a lot, so that whatever GM labeling comes about doesn't hurt our organic label.
Great. Very, very good. Thank you, Kelly. That's a great point. Thank you. And I really like questions where I don't actually have to answer anything. Say, well done, good point.
Marty Mesh with Florida Organic Growers, and if you ever want to retire and move to Florida, we are in need of a new senator down there. So,
You have an opportunity to elect a new senator here shortly.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, given the economic benefit which you realize of organic and the environmental benefit of what you obviously realize from organic, the share of organic in budgets and the share of organic in federal appropriations, although much more than it was when we had nothing, and they were in complete denial about organic, which wasn't that long ago from an organic farmer's perspective, has increased. But you talked about the increase in SARE appropriations, but SARE has never been fulfilled to what the enabling authorizing legislation was. I mean, it had far to go, and that was where we used to go for organic research years ago. And so I was just wondering what your perspective is about how we start to increase the amount of public research dollars for organic.
Yes, so the way that things move through Congress, you have authorizing legislation, and that doesn't actually spend any money, so it's very easy to set the ceiling wherever. And then along comes the appropriating or spending process, and that's under the sequester, which means if you do more funds for this, you have to take funds away from that. Well, that's a much harder proposition. And it's really, in a situation like this where the authorizing is in the sky, you're really fighting the battle over the appropriation. Can you keep each year expanding it, nurturing it, protecting it? And I think that's what we've been succeeding in doing. And I think as we see the organic movement grow, we're going to see a steady increase. If I was to be here at a conference with all of you 10 years ago, my guess it'd be half the room, a third of the room, a third, right? So this is growing. Now, you all, as part of this movement, need to go home and say, you know, next year, let's double our representation from back home to come here to DC. I mean, it's expensive to fly in, and it costs you all a lot of time, and here we are in the growing season. But in terms of contributing to the movement, growing the representation, the networking on Capitol Hill, that is going to make a huge difference in our success in more rapidly expanding programs like SARE. And it's, well, should we take one more? Okay.
Thank you. Doug Crabtree. I'm from Montana, so close to Oregon. One of the challenges that our segment faces is inadequate supply, as I'm sure you're aware. And one thing that could help that is if we had more access to land for farmers that want to farm organically. And an idea that I have is a few years ago when non-organic prices were high, there was a provision to allow early out of CRP contracts to put that back into crop production. I would like to see a bill in the next farm bill, or maybe even before, that would allow early out for organic production, which is a conservation system in itself. So I'd like your comments on that possibility.
And early out in order to be able to convert into organic. Well, let me start, Doug, with the fact that you have one of the best advocates in the country, Senator Tester himself, an organic farmer. And so take this idea to Senator Tester, tell him I'm interested in talking to him about it, and let's get our two teams together and explore it. Because it's worth looking at. It's a new idea. I hadn't heard it raised before, but I see the general point you're making. And if we can get your home state senator to help us wrestle with it, maybe that is something we can champion. Thank you. Well, thank you all very, very much. Take care now, and God bless you.